Good. Okay. I would like to call to order the Monday, November 2nd meeting of the Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore,
Here.
Alder Goforth,
Here.
Alder Wood,
Here.
Alder Kuhr,
Here.
Alder Thomas,
Here.
Alder Groupie,
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Am I the only one who spoke for that? Maybe. We do not have any minutes available from the last meeting yet. I'm sure the city clerk has had more than enough to do trying to run the elections, so we will consider those at the next meeting. We don't have anybody registered for an appearance, Brian?
Nope.
Okay, there are no appearances. There is no public hearing. There is no consent agenda. Under council action items, unfinished business 1A, consideration of ordinance 10-20-735, extending approval of liquor establishment patios on a temporary basis, and this is put forth by the Plan Commission. Is there a motion to approve this?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Doug Plowman, were you going to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. I can just give a brief overview. So this was a request put forward by Devin Renner of MESBA, looking to extend the current outdoor dining ordinance that really came into effect to offer additional space, additional outdoor areas in the age of social distancing. This was an additional piece to go into that. That is set to expire November 15th. So the request was really to look to extend that, but also to add a couple different elements. That includes possible drive-through options, pickup, unique pickup setups, but also potential screening of some of those spaces as well outdoors as the weather turns. The Plan Commission was generally very supportive, mindful, of course, of the oversight needed from police and fire with some of those elements. But certainly recognized the need to support businesses in this time and the need to do as much as we can to help.
Does anyone have any questions on this? Alder Groupie.
I just wanted to ask, so with regard to the potential screening or tents around the patio extensions, are there any guidelines about, whether or not it has to be 3-sided or if it needs to be all enclosed? I was trying to look on the DPH website for any guidance of, in the restaurant business section, and I didn't see anything. And I'm completely supportive of, being able to extend this patio provision to our businesses as the weather starts to turn, but I'm just not clear on safest and best practices for those sorts of structures.
There was certainly some discussion of that at the Plan Commission meeting, particularly if it becomes too enclosed, then it almost becomes an indoor setting again, which is what you're trying to avoid. I think it was to be on a case by case. There's not really a model here that can be used. The igloos were discussed, but I think just getting your hands on any of these things are pretty challenging. So I think it would be a case by case, and my understanding is that the restaurants would look to keep it open, at least one side, depending on weather and temperatures. But ideally, the bigger they are, the sort of more airflow and things like that, and can really limit the risks there.
Thank you.
Alder Moore.
I did, in fact, see an article that was generated by public health officials, not in Dane County, but generally that came through the New York Times recently regarding the use of igloos and tents exactly in this manner. And I meant to save it and I will unearth it. It shouldn't take me and send it to you tomorrow, and send it, Devin, to you as well. And it did specifically speak to the issue of leaving 2 sides actually open as opposed to one. But it had some other good tips too, and hopefully it'll just be that much more helpful that we do it safely.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, if no one else has any comments, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to new business, under item 2A, consideration of ordinance 11-20-736, rezoning 611 Clear Springs Court from public facilities to single-family residence district, put forth by the Plan Commission.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So I can just give a quick overview. We also have a couple people on the line with us. We have Mr. Bradley, Mr. Ralph Bradley, who is the owner of the property, as well as Mr. Leonard Piantek, who is the realtor. They've both been working with me as this comes through Plan Commission, or came through Plan Commission. So this property is an existing single-family property. The zoning there is public facilities. Mr. Bradley has purchased the property. The home itself is in a pretty poor state of repair, and they're looking to tear down the home and rebuild a new single-family residence. Because of the zoning as is with public facilities, that would not be possible. So they put forward the request to rezone to single-family. It is a single-family neighborhood adjacent to the park there, and the Plan Commission considered this. It was noticed as well, and with all the standards, and there were no comments. They were supportive of it. No public comments. They were supportive of the request. This is envisioned in the future land use plan of the city's comprehensive plan as being residential. So it was deemed to be in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, and it was deemed appropriate.
Questions? Alder Thomas and then Alder Moore. Kathy, you're muted.
One is, are they under any time constraints? Because I'm wondering if we should take this out of order and vote on it tonight, or if we also have, do we have public notice requirements that require we do a 2-meeting approval on this?
The public meeting requirements would have been satisfied with the public hearing at the Plan Commission.
Okay, are they under time constraints?
This is Ralph Bradley, the property owner. We don't have a specific time constraint, but we would like to get moving as quickly as possible.
Okay. Alder Moore, did you have a question?
I just wanted to comment as a follow-up to the Plan Commission discussion that, well, I don't believe we went back. We did not go back specifically and look at the minutes, but it was the impression of those members of the Plan Commission that have been on the commission for a while, that this was frankly an oversight, that it should have been identified as residential when we last did the, because of course it is a residential property now, and at the time that some rezoning was done, it was felt by several members of the Plan Commission that it just somehow got omitted. So
If it's the property I'm thinking of, it's been there for quite a while, hasn't it?
correct,
Are you sure? Okay.
correct.
Alder Thomas,
I move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes.
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is approved. So you can go ahead and start building or tearing down, whichever comes first.
Whichever comes first.
Thank you.
Okay, next item 2B, consideration of resolution 20-11-2446, approval of a 3-year proposal from Barnes Inc. for brush collection services. And this is put forth by the Public Works Committee. Mr. Stefani.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Works Committee voted on September 2nd to recommend approval to City Council to pass the Barnes proposal. It is a 3-year proposal in addition to coming off a 3-year contract that they will finish up with at the end of this year. We have $74,000 allocated in the 2021 operating budget for their services. 63,000 of that will go to brush collection, 6,000 for storm cleanup, and 5,000 for the Christmas tree collection that we do every January. It's a pretty straightforward contract. It accounts for allocations again in 2022 and 2023 based on a 3% increase each year. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. This is in the packet for first reading tonight.
Anyone have any questions? Alder Goforth?
Yeah, Dan, how has the contract been going, and have any complaints been generated with Barnes, or has it been going smoothly?
I guess I would term it as a success over the last 3 years. I think we can count on one hand the number of times that we've received phone calls. And I believe those were mainly about residents not knowing the pile size restrictions. But otherwise, yeah, they've done great work for the city.
Excellent.
Alder Thomas?
Yeah, I want to second that. I mean, there's a limit to the size of branches they're supposed to take, and they take stuff well above what they have to take, and they're very good about it, and big, long piles, and they're fast and they are efficient.
Right.
I've also heard of them going up to the door of different residences and explaining what they need to do in order to put out the right materials. Some people have a lot of other garden waste and everything thrown in, and so these are pretty understanding about it.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Next item, and this is started for immediate approval, consideration of resolution 20-11-2448, authorizing the use of Dream Park Shelter settlement funds for improvement projects put forth by the Parks and Recreation Board.
I'll move approval.
We need a motion to take it out
Move
of
to
order.
suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is that, Molly, did you move to approve, or who moved?
I'll move to approve.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. I guess, Jake, would you like to explain the situation here?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. At the October 15th Parks Board meeting, the committee recommended approval of staff recommended renovations and repairs to the Dream Park Shelter. Per a lawsuit, we received a settlement of approximately $75,000, 2009, 2010. We've been sitting on that money. Attempts and estimates to renovate that existing shelter to make it a four-season shelter, not financially feasible or aesthetically feasible. And so we're now a decade plus after the original construction of the shelter and have some needed repairs that are stated in your packet. So looking to get approval for these repairs and work on the majority of them this fall into the winter yet.
Doug?
Jake, have we used any of that settlement money yet, or we had the full amount? Okay.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these look, Park Board reviewed these too, and I think it's a good list of improvements, maintenance, and, you know, I think it's time to go ahead and pull the trigger on it. So.
Any other comments or questions? Alder Moore?
I just thought I would mention that if my memory serves me correctly, this was the genesis of the city now having a facilities committee. What happened with the shelter helped us realize that having specific trades expertise to review proposals and materials and on anything related to city facilities made a lot of sense to make sure that we get what we actually think we're getting across the board. So I just thought I'd put that out as a point of historical reference.
That is true, and I would add that this did not happen when Parks Director Anderson was here. It happened under an earlier park director. So I'm sure Jake would have caught it. Anyone else? Alder Goforth.
I was just wondering, was the itemized list, was that, those estimates received fairly recently? I'm just, knowing that we're in the pandemic, a lot of pricing has been altered due to supply chain issues. And I was wondering if that is a recent itemized list.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Croupi,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Goforth,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Coor,
Aye.
Alder Thomas.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, item D, consideration of resolution 20-11-2447, adopting the 2021 operating budget and establishing a tax levy, which I have put forth. We are discussing it tonight. Alder Coor has put forth 2 amendments that were emailed to you later this afternoon. I'm not sure if everyone saw those or not. We also have several staff members here to answer questions about any of the other items proposed in the budget, if anyone has any questions. Alder Thomas.
Could someone remind me, I know I could look it up, but Mark, could you remind us how close are we to the legislative cap on the levy?
We are currently $18,640 under the levy limit.
Okay, and that does not include any salary increases or contract settlements between the police and the fire?
That is correct.
We will be discussing those in closed session.
And I'm not sure if everybody, so if we exceed the levy limits, how much do we lose?
If you exceed the levy limit, there is a penalty. You lose that same amount you would for state aid under shared revenue. For every dollar you go over, you get $1 less in state aid under state shared revenues. So they would lose there. It's based on how many dollars you go over.
Has everyone had a chance to see the proposed amendments? Yeah. Alder Coor, do you want to address them?
Sure. So I was surprised when we received the operating budget that there was no account for cost of living increase for staff. I think that it's an important thing that we offer to our staff to maintain the employees that we have. Surrounding communities are getting cost of living increases. And the only one that's close to us that's not is Sun Prairie. Middleton's getting 2%, Fitchburg's getting 2%. Most of the other surrounding communities are getting at least 2%. And so I proposed 2 options. I proposed a 1%, which is accounted for mostly by cuts, small cuts to across the board, across the budget. And then with a small $3,000 amount, a little less than $3,000 from the fund balance. And then there's a 2% option, which more of that will come from fund balance, essentially. It includes the same cuts, but then additionally some from fund balance.
I would just point out that all of those communities, for the most part, are able to raise their levy limit is much higher than ours is because they have so much more new construction. So that does constrain us. I did not want to have to do this either, but I appreciate your putting forth the proposal. Alder Thomas.
Yeah, I agree that there is a concern. And I could support the 1% because if we don't give them something, they'll probably take less home in their paycheck than they do this year because of increase in insurance. I am concerned about taking money from the fund balance because we have to make that up. We have to add that on to the levy next year. So, and I am hopeful that when things get turned around, that we will be able to make it up to them by giving them a bump in some future years. I'm concerned about doing it now because we've got some contracts we have to agree with. We've got some levy limits, and we don't know what's going to happen in the next 12 months. So I commend you for doing it. I certainly think the 1% is very doable. I'm concerned about taking that much more out of the fund balance.
Alder
I'd be
Moore.
willing to pull the 2%.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, in terms of the cuts offered to offset either, but especially at the 1% level, since that's one really applies. Did you work with department heads as to where they would see the cut as being a kind of least offensive or least problematic for the departments, or did you, or how did you, or with Mark, or how did you come up with those particular line items to cut?
Sure. So I spoke with a couple of the department heads, Public Works and the library, discussed what would work best for them. The other area I targeted was professional development, being that we're heading into probably year 2 of the pandemic. A lot of professional development opportunities are going virtual, and so travel is less frequent. And so I did pull from a lot of the professional development lines. There's a couple large chunks from the executive office area. One was for marketing at $3,000, which we haven't used in the last 2 years. And so it was unclear to me why we still had it in the budget. And then there was another $1,500 for some sort of award that I probably think we could forego this year.
I think that Brian, for that budget application for the national budget.
Yeah, it'd be for the Government Finance Officer Association's budget award. So once this budget is adopted by the council on the 16th, myself and staff will work to kind of reformat the budget in such a manner that makes it more user-friendly. And then there is a program through GFOA that you can submit your budget for that. They're changing the program from what it was in previous years. So the dollar amount for the award application is much less than what I quoted here. So within the executive officer budget, I can figure out ways to do that if it makes sense for us to do that program. So I'm not necessarily concerned about that particular line item.
Did you have any concerns, Brian, about the marketing, since it takes the marketing for CDA as well? I think this is what you used to buy that for MadRip this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, we'll internally as staff put our heads together and see what we can do to solve for that. We'll kind of think creatively on that item. But if this is the direction the council wants to go in terms of making the 1%, we'll figure out a way on the back end to figure out the marketing piece.
Do any of the staff here have any concerns? I know some of these items, I think you'd already cut back somewhat already. I'm assuming I didn't get a chance to look at them real closely. But if anyone has anything to add, feel free. Ryan?
Yeah, just Alder Core did ask me about this, and I took a look at my budget. I think the library can take this cut. So speaking to the library department specifically, in looking at the ultimate goal, where I appreciate Alder Core doing this and you all discussing it, that at least for the library's biggest resource by far is our staff, and they've been working hard throughout the last 7+ months, not to mention prior to that. And I believe the other city departments and staff have been doing the same. And I just appreciate the discussion on trying to keep up with this, and knowing that, understanding why there are constraints on the city of Monona in terms of increasing salaries and wages, but our neighbors are increasing it. And I was a little concerned that this year would be pausing the city and essentially widening the gap between those municipalities, especially as we have job openings and are trying to stay competitive in getting the most qualified people. So, in terms of the library, these cuts to me, we can take for this year because getting those increases for the salaries and wages, even if it's just 1%, is extremely valuable.
And you're okay with the maintenance and repairs? Because that's a line we've gone over a lot with the library in recent years.
Yes, there's been a lot of ups and downs, as I mentioned during the committee of the whole, of why I decreased that line item to get to the budget that was asked for, is because when I started, the maintenance of the building was quite expensive. The majority of that was towards the HVAC. With the city's investment of replacing the HVAC in phases, we're seeing a decrease in that. So I believe we can take that that hit. And if push comes to shove, if we go through that line item this year, knock on wood, something bad happens, I would look at other available funds to do anything in terms of an emergency, most likely the library's fund balance.
Mark, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to kind of hit on, the net new construction is the reason why we're in this. And it's kind of what everybody's saying, the surrounding areas. I just want people to know DeForest is 4.81%. McFarland was 3%. Oregon was 2.1%. Waukees 2.67%. Pittsburgh is 4.89% new construction. Milton's 2.67%. Ours is basically 1.67%. So that's, a lot of it, that's the big difference between these outlying areas, is their net new construction is so much higher than ours. And this is going to be a problem next year. I just want people aware of it. I mean, we'll probably be less than 1% next year. So we won't have all the big other drops in revenues, like the interest income and hotel tax, other stuff. So we should be able to manage it better next year. I mean, this year was just all kinds of stuff came at once with Walmart too, that 50,000. But these other communities, they have those flat lands and they can just build and they get those net new constructions to go up. We actually, it's redeveloped. So you tear something down, it already has a value and you got to build something above that value. It's difficult to get net new construction out. So this is, unfortunately for Monona, it's a common theme every year. It's going to be forever at Monona.
Unless we can get the legislature to change.
Right.
Because it's tough for a lot of communities, not just us. I mean, a lot of communities in northern areas of the state are in much worse shape than we are. Really, they don't have any increase. So Alder Thomas and then Alder Moore.
Yeah, just a thought. Sorry. Sometimes time is as valuable to employees as money. Is it possible that on a one-time basis, we could give our employees some extra time off for the year? If we couldn't give them money, we could give them time. Not on a permanent basis, or do we set up a precedent, or do people even value that? Or do they even have the time because they're so busy working they can't take time off?
Well, the challenge with that in the COVID environment that we're in is that people are kind of restricted in terms of where they can travel, when they can travel, and all of that. So in a normal year, time probably would have a different value, but in this year where most people are delaying or not doing any vacation because they can't go places, adding additional time to that doesn't necessarily solve for anything, because in many cases people are going to be rolling over at least some portion of their vacation from 2020 to 2021, and we don't know at what points in 21, if at all, we'll get to the point where people will feel more comfortable to take more time off.
Alder Moore.
I'm wondering if it might make sense to take to convene the closed session and have the discussion to get the updates there and the impact on the budget first, since I'm assuming that that might shed some light on where we're really at, since since that's sort of been hanging as part of this overall operating budget before we go back to this, before we go back to approving the operating budget.
We can do that.
I will be voting on this tonight anyway, but Brian, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just saying we can do that, but I would just ask if you have any additional questions for staff members to let them know, because Not all of them will be in the closed session, so I'd just rather have you ask your questions of them now so they can be dismissed before we go into closed session.
Alder Moore.
Well, I don't have any questions except for to say that the only person that spoke up was Ryan, and I would love to hear from the other staff as it relates to the other cuts in the various budgets and where they sit with it.
Does anyone else have anything to say? Jake and then Dan.
Thank you, Alder Coor, for thinking
Looks
of
like-
city staff when it comes to salary increases. It's a minimal amount, but there's a snowball effect as it relates to a lot of different things, future earnings, WRS, et cetera. So I do appreciate that. The items that were listed for the community center and recreation, we can handle, no problem. So I do appreciate you taking the time and spreading a little bit of the cuts across multiple departments. Feel free to add more if you want.
Dan.
Okay, yes, thank you as well from, on behalf of Public Works. Going into this budget season, we were asked to come up with 4 budgets. We are proceeding with a 0% increase, so we've had to tighten the belt. If we have to tighten the belt to the tune of a few grand more, so we can get 100 plus people, more staff members, a 1% increase, absolutely. And if I'm needed to find more room, absolutely. This is hopefully a 1-year thing, but we have great staff in every department. We have a lot of staff, and if we can put forth this money to get, like I said, 100 plus people a raise, I'm in. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Anyone else? Let's have Jerry and then Alder Coor.
Sorry, Alder, didn't mean to raise my hand at the same time you did. So I actually just wanted to echo the other employees. I didn't see any cuts come through on the fire department side, but in the vein of we're all part of the same city. If you need to take some cuts from our professional development on the ambulance side, again, echoing the idea that most of our professional development is canceled. It's all either remote or not happening. If you need to take some cuts to the professional development line on the EMS side, by all means, I could support that. Again, we're part of the same city. So if we can pitch in and make sure this happens for the employees, I'm all for that. So.
Thank you, Jerry. Alder Coor, and then if anyone else has anything.
I did purposely not take from fire and PD just because I wasn't sure if professional development was linked to your contracts and didn't have those available at the time. So that's why I didn't touch that. But certainly if that's something that the council would like to look at, I think that would be appropriate. And I appreciate the offer, certainly. I want to point out that we're in this position because when Act 10 was enacted, our staff became more unrepresented as opposed to fire and PD. And so because they're not represented, we are put in this position. I think if they were union employees, this would just be, it would be part of their contracts and this would be accepted. And so I'm disappointed that this is the way we have to do this now, but it is. And I think that it's important that we protect our staff. Our staff have repeatedly shown up for us. I think back to 2018 when we had the floods and people worked weekends, they worked holidays to make sure that the city was safe. And many of the employees aren't from Monona, and their commitment to this community is amazing. And I think we need to at least give them as much as we can.
Okay, Alder Groupie.
I'll try to keep this brief so that I don't fly off the handle with my emotions, but I just really appreciate that Alder Coor has taken the time to so thoughtfully put this together and submit it. Hearing the staff just all in concert talking about, what a worthwhile, sacrifice it is to be able to offer this additional benefit to their employees. It just is, it's a weird time in life, and to hear everybody's positivity and optimism about it, and just that unity that I think our leadership shows is very important, and I find it very, very touching personally. So thank you everybody for the discussion tonight.
Thank you. Alder Wood.
Yeah, I just kind of second those thoughts, those sentiments. Thank Alder Kur for bringing this forward. And yeah, it was really heartening to hear a pretty unified voice from the staff and looking out for their employees. That's it.
Anyone, Chief Ostrenga?
Okay, well, I'm going to be gone, of course. But if your police chief search goes as well as your fire chief search, there might be some extra money if it takes as long that I'm sure could be redirected or possibly redirected. It's refreshing because I just think back several years ago when I had to fight for pay raises for my supervisors and the council came through. So I hope this is a trend that continues and thank you.
Anyone else? Alder Moore.
I just have I certainly echo everyone else's sentiments. I think it's terrific. And I thank Alder Kur and our staff. I'm just curious in terms of the budget preparation and deliberation, since my understanding was that originally budgets were prepared with some with 1%, 1% less, 2%, 2% less as options. If any of the department heads at the time suggested foregoing other budget line items to support increases in this regard, since that was, it seems to me there was some discussions previously about, like I said, 1% or 2% in either direction. I'm just curious if that was part of budget discussions in preparation for.
Part of the direction was figuring out a zero pay increase, although I didn't necessarily meet, that's what I asked them to prepare, was based on that. Sometimes we've done that in the past and that doesn't necessarily mean that's what happens. It kind of depends on how the numbers fall out. And of course, even though it's a 0%, we still had, I don't know what the percentage increase is for health, 3.8 for health insurance and utilities and that kind of thing. So they had to cut some things to be able to afford what their increases were for those different items as well. So, it's, and then when we got to the point of Mark put all the numbers together and a 0% gave us, well, as he said, 18,000 or something left under the cap. And of course, we still have the police and fire contracts to settle yet, which we'll be discussing in closed session. So that's kind of where we were. Alder Thomas?
Yeah, just a bit of history. I think, well, first of all, I wanted to thank Mark and Brian and Mary and the people who put the budget together and the staff who did it, because I don't recall in my 5 years on the council, or however many, that we've ever had a 0% in budget, ever. I mean, times have never been this tough, and people have really pulled together in a great way, and I have not heard one bit of whining or complaining, and I think it really is quite remarkable. Department heads stepped up the plate and did what they needed to do. The mayor, I mean, Mayor, you are not the villain in all of this, even though we'd like to make you that so we can blame you because nobody can get anything. But you know, for you guys to put this budget together was really quite spectacular, and getting us what you need to do to get us through these tough times, because I've never seen anything like it.
Thank you. And of course, my goal all along was to make sure everybody had a job, and I'm happy to say that we were able to do that, except for one position, which was impacted by a different change in situation. So that was my goal, and I'm happy we could do that. But if you can figure out a way to come up with, the 1% or whatever, Alder Kur said she would withdraw the Second Amendment. I'd love to do 2% too, but I really don't want to take that out of fund balance, because we know that'll becomes part of our base expenses next year if we use that this year. So Anyone else?
Well, I was going to say,
Alder Thomas.
plus, we know that the people, I mean, we're going to do closed session. We're going to talk about negotiating with the unions, and they'll be looking at what we're doing and other things. So
True. Anybody else have anything? Okay, well then we will move on and we can discuss this more next week, obviously. Next item, convene in closed session under Wisconsin statute section 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. And this is related to firefighters local 311 and Wisconsin Professional Police Association bargaining update. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I'll move.
Alder Groupie second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Kuhr,
Here.
Alder Thomas,
aye.
Alder Groupie.
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Goforth,
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.